With a little bit of Jay Carney, because he's always good for a laugh. What will we do? What will the world do? What will Putin do when we don't have this administration to kick around anymore? Jay Carney was asked by John Carl about the state-run Russian TV commentator claiming that Russia could reduce the United States to a pile of radioactive dust. This is not just some crazy commentator. This is a guy who just received an award, a medal from Putin. So this is a guy who, hangs in those circles. Here's what happened to the White House yesterday.
But here's the actual Jay Carney. Should we get back?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, here we go.
Russian television, state-controlled television, main state-controlled channel. Dmitry Kiselev, prominent Russian television anchor, posed in front of a mushroom cloud and warned that Russia is the only country in the world capable of turning the U.S. into radioactive dust. I mention this because it's state-controlled Russian television, which, as we know, doesn't, generally broadcast stuff that is not, signed off by the government of Russia. What is your sense when you hear something like that?
I mean, that people say crazy things on TV all the time.
Yeah, but this is Russian state-controlled TV. I take your point entirely.
This is MSNBC. So you understand, Jay, this is like MSNBC saying it.
You could say it's from the administration.
Yeah, this is that. I mean, that's that. People say crazy things on television all the time. No, in Russia, if you disagree with Putin, they kill you. And on state-controlled television, you say what Putin is telling you to say.
That's what makes his response so insane.
Stop. Which is more insane? I was struck last night with a deal I showed the guys this morning. There is a stock chart from Russia, and it shows the Russian GDP estimate. Okay, and it's showing that it's going down. And this starts in 2012 to March of 2014. And so the GDP estimate keeps going down in a downward trend. And the stocks pretty much follow that, generally speaking. Okay? That's the Russians. Our line, our estimate of GDP falls off a cliff. And as ours is going down, our stock market continues to go up. And I saw this and I thought to myself, we are completely unpegged from reality in everything. In Common Core, in math, in literal math, in the stock market, in banking, in Hollywood, in movies, in society, in our churches, everywhere. We are going to be remembered. I wrote a note last night. I wanted to tell you this. Start a diary today. Please hear me out. I was saying my prayers last night, and this is what came to me to tell you today. Start a diary today. Look at the news and what is happening. Look at what you believe and what you cannot believe is happening in the country. It will all reset at some point. Tell your grandchildren what freedom and capitalism was really like, for they may not know. Tell the truth on the news. Tell the truth on the country. Set the record straight, at least for your family. Start a diary today. I got up from my knees last night, and that's what I wrote. I don't know. I think I know why, because I think things are going to reset. And the world is about to change. And history will come back and look at this time period. And they will wonder, just like we wonder all the time. See, the one thing that's left out of the scriptures, when you read them, you read the Bible and you're like, oh, okay, how do these people, they build up, they get destroyed, they're in slavery, they get released, and then they get prosperous, and they build up, and then they're destroyed. And you see the pattern, but you never see the writings of the regular person. You see the writings of the prophet and everything else, but you don't see the regular writings of the regular person going, I can't wake my friends up. I can't wake my family up. I can't. Look at how this is all happening piece by piece. and making a clear record. I'm telling you, as much as the Germans need to have these records, and they have destroyed most of theirs, I fear we are going to need this record for our children to be able to set the record straight, because the truth is not going to be told. And you need to write them and start a diary today. If you've already done that and maybe you've fallen away from it, get back into it. But make a diary and begin it today. And give your children and your grandchildren the truth on what is happening. Because there is no way that the truth is going to be recorded. There's just no way. Listen to what happened here. When he says that this is state television, and he says we're going to be vaporized. Now imagine if I would have gone on and I would have on television put a mushroom cloud behind and said, don't worry, we're the only country that could still make a radioactive ash out of Russia. You know the reporters would not have been laughing me off. However, I don't work for the government. I don't have the inside ear of the White House or the administration. I'm not part of that. They're not calling me. They're not paying me to say these things. Here's a reporter, an anchor in Russia, who is being paid by Putin and the state-run television. And he has the mushroom cloud, and he says we're the only country that can still make them into radioactive ash. So that is, I'm not saying that they're threatening nuclear war. They are sending us a message. The White House says a lot of people. And what happens? The most disturbing part of this is not what Jay Carney says. We all know who Jay Carney is. The most disturbing part of this is the laughter from the peanut gallery, other reporters, who should have said, wait a minute, Jay, don't you think that's a little irresponsible? This is state-run television. That's a little irresponsible. That is a message coming from the Kremlin. And nobody's saying that Putin is going to destroy us with nuclear weapons, but he is sending us a message. Are you guys hearing the message that they are ratcheting this thing up? While you're playing little games, they're ratcheting this up and sending the world a very clear message. America won't mess with us. Does that disturb the president or anybody in the White House? That's a serious question.
Yeah, especially considering, and there's no follow-up here, but Jay goes on to answer that they're focused on what the government is doing.
It's on the actions of the Russian government. We're focused on the support we're providing to the Ukrainian government.
Guess what? The actions of the Russian government are what he's talking about.
Yeah,
because
he's talking state-run television.
Yeah.
The guy just got a medal from Putin.
Yeah.
This is one of the main guys. This is one of his main mouthpieces.
He's a messenger for Putin.
Right. So. And I'm not saying that Putin is going to vaporize the world. But I'm also not saying that Putin isn't crazy enough to do that. Putin is a survivalist. And that's what got us through the Cold War, is in the end, people want to live. Now, the game has been changed with Muslim extremists. But that's what got us through the war, the Cold War, was mutually assured destruction. So Putin is not crazy enough to pull the trigger and vaporize us. But Putin is, I can't find the right word because it's not arrogant. He has enough knowledge at the geopolitical game of chess to believe, and I believe in many ways rightly so, that the American experiment could be over, and he could be the guy that helps pull that last string out.
And that's a piece of history he wants.
It is. He will be remembered as all time. Remember, they don't believe that the war between Russia and America is settled. That was just a halftime break. And mark my words, hear me clearly. If the American continent falls and stumbles, and if the American experiment stumbles, I will tell you that it will be important for us to change our uniforms just as they did and keep our Constitution alive in the hearts of our children, even if our own government doesn't, because that Constitution belongs to this land. That Constitution is what will save the people of the world. And so, Mr. Putin, it just may be round 3 when we get back on our feet. You may win this round, as we won the first round. But I am telling you, it is imperative that you know the truth, you know history, and you know the Constitution and why it was written. Because if the entire world goes to hell, it has to live in our hearts and in the hearts of our children. It must. Head of the intelligence community in Romania comes over here in the 1970s, but he is part of this. He remembers that particular speech given by John Kerry during the Vietnam War. And remembers laughing with everybody over there going, I can't believe how well this is working. This was disinformation planted by the Soviet Union. Now, once you understand how disinformation works and how the Soviet Union masters it, and the difference between propaganda is the guy who was on state-run radio that Jay Carney won't even address, that is on state-run radio. That is, Putin has his own radio company and television company, and he says, I'm paying you. Here's the government's line. That's propaganda. This guy gets out and he says, you know, we're the only country that can make the United States a pile of radioactive ash. That's propaganda. Now, I don't think that what he's saying is we're going to launch missiles. He's just saying it's another attempt of mocking, belittling the United States, and showing that we are absolutely eunuchs. Total eunuchs. That's propaganda. What disinformation is the Soviet Union would go and find ways, and most times they didn't even know they were being used. They would find ways to plant information and get it out, and then get it into the hands of somebody with credibility, like a soldier. This was written by the Soviet Union. Not that John Kerry understood that. This was KGB propaganda. It gets its way and finds its way into the hands of John Kerry, and he delivers it. Something the Soviet Union could have never paid for, and they got it. So they know this. They know their history. I mean, they're reading their old KGB files. They know exactly what happened. And so when we appoint this guy, and he says, we're going to scare the pants off you,
they know what they're dealing with.
they know exactly what they're dealing with. And
They know they got their hands full, Glenn.
they're laughing because they're like, these guys don't even know we played him last time. He still hasn't. The wall has come down. The documents are there. You can listen to people like that general from Romania. He will verify it, and the documents will back it up. And he still doesn't know he was used. We're going to use him and twist him around in so many ways, he won't know what hit him.
Like they did with Syria.
Yes.
They did this to John Kerry and this administration with Syria.
Yeah, but did you hear what we did to them?
No.
Well, yeah.
Maybe you people haven't heard what we did to them.
No,
Glenn, I told you yesterday.
I know.
There would be severe consequences if the Ruskies didn't back off.
I know. I don't think you...
And who's laughing now? Because what we did yesterday, Glenn, and this is just the start of it, but we froze the assets of 7 Russian officials.
Yeah.
But it didn't stop there. We also froze the assets, the foreign assets that they probably don't have, of 4 Ukrainians.
Okay, well, that's the point. They don't have any
But
assets.
here's the thing, Glenn.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We stand ready, as the president said yesterday, to draw yet another red line, which, if crossed, would bring even tougher sanctions.
Like what are the sanctions you issued yesterday are not tough. What are the tough
sanctions? Let me tell
sanctions?
you something. You noticed, or perhaps you didn't, being the fool that you are. Vladimir Putin wasn't mentioned at all among those whose assets we froze.
Right.
What would happen, Glenn, if we decided to restrict the admittance of Putin's mistresses into Walgreens pharmacies so that they did not have fast, free, easy access to birth control? You want a war on women? We'll give you one, Putin.
Let me tell you
like that. A bunch of Svetlanas and Vasilis running around the Kremlin.
Yeah, I got to tell you something. I don't think that he has...
We're also considering some drastic measures like cutting off Viktor Bogdanovich Belanovsky's 30% off coupon at medieval times. We may go that far. How about that? Try that one on for size.
Wait a
No
minute.
more picking up your turkey legs with your fingers and rooting for the Red Knight on Thursday evenings, Mr. Bognoyevich.
I don't know who Bognoyevich is.
Okay, if you want to play that game, Glenn, I'll bite. As any American with half a brain knows, he's only one of a handful of mid-level management shelf replenishers at the state-run Kroger's in Moscow. If you want to play stupid,
Now, could they get
and
the
obviously
free,
you do.
Could Vladimir get the free birth control at the Kroger still?
No, he cannot,
Okay.
and we're not going to give him the 30% coupon for that either.
But he could still go. He
could go, but he'd have to pay full price, Stu.
What about parking?
Do you see
Is
what
it-
I'm saying? Parking, he would also have to pay for.
Now, hang on just a second.
Now, we'll pick up gas on the way to the
Are
medieval
you saying
times.
that? Are you
You'll
saying
pay
that we are actually?
I mean, we're
giving,
not. We're,
hold on just a second. Are you saying that we're actually giving birth control out to Russians in Russia at their state-run pharmacies?
Well, of course. Do you think we were running a war on Russian women? Is that what you thought?
Okay,
No, that's the
all right.
Republicans in this
All right.
country. That's the Bush administration.
Okay.
That's
All
that president, not
Right,
this
okay.
president.
Yeah, okay.
And Glenn, we have our finest ships in the United States Navy.
Yes.
Which, as you know, is part of the military-industrial complex in this country that has raped, cut off limbs,
Hold it.
cut off ears, cut off heads, blown up bodies, taped wires from portable telephones to human genitals and turned up the power, raised villages in a fashion reminiscent of Genghis Khan, shot cattle and dogs for fun, poisoned foon stocks.
Hey, can I ask
And
you?
if you've ever had your foon stock poisoned,
I was.
you know just how
I don't have
awful
a foon
that
stock.
could be. I'm not surprised you don't have foon. But,
I don't know what.
but in the villages of Vietnam, it was important, and our soldiers poisoned that foon. All of their stocks, every foon was totally poisoned and unusable.
So food stock would be a large collection.
It would be
of
a collection of foon.
Okay.
Thank you, Stu. You're catching on.
Okay, yeah.
Now, you know who the U.S. military is. I don't
Those
have to
guys.
tell you. It's
Right.
those evil bastards we've got maneuvering into position right now
Wait.
to blockade Angola, which, as you know, is a Russian hotspot for vacation travel. There will be no Ruski bigwigs headed to exotic Angola anytime soon, let me tell you.
Okay, that's.
Seems like they might
good.
not travel there anyway. Just like
Angola, don't play this game with me, Stu.
Did you notice that you were denigrating the U.S. military while touting them at the same time?
I don't know what you're talking about. Do you know that I served in Vietnam, Glenn?
I did, but you also, when you served in
38
Vietnam...
Purple Hearts in 15 and a half minutes.
I don't... No,
38.
First of all, I don't think it's like the Olympics where you...
Ouch! I just scratched my knee. That's another Purple Heart. In fact, some people have said that every time a bell rings, I receive another Purple Heart.
You know what's amazing is this is the guy who's threatening to use military force. These guys hate our military.
Oh, my gosh.
They've always hated our military.
I don't think it's hard to argue John Kerry doesn't. I mean, the guy vilified.
When he came home, he spit in the face of every Vietnam
With
veteran.
propaganda.
He said it was
with
systematic.
disinformation, with Soviet disinformation.
He was not saying, arguing all that the food stock poisoning was from a few bad apples.
Did he ever... Well,
No, he said it was systemic.
Can I tell you something? One bad apple in the foon stock spoils the whole
That
bunch.
spoils the
all
whole
the
bunch,
food?
girl.
Yeah, it does. The whole foon.
It does.
All the food is
All
spoiled.
the food,
With one
the
bad
whole
apple.
stock.
Can I ask you this? Has he ever spoken out about that? Has he ever said? Because I've never heard him.
To my knowledge, he's never renounced.
He's
what he
defended
said.
it. Yeah,
He's defended the Winter Soldier.
I told a tough truth.
Tough
that
truth.
sort of nonsense.
Yeah. Which he heard rumors, as you mentioned, that were planted by the Russians.
Yeah.
In their disinformation
Well,
campaign.
you have to read this book. It's called Disinformation, and it is really it's astounding what we don't know.
One of the things that surprised me most was that I wouldn't think that would be the biggest part of their intelligence campaign. And according to General
What's his name?
Pacipa, it was the biggest part. And like intelligence gathering was part of it. But the thing that they were most involved in was this,
because it was
disinformation. It worked the best.
Yeah, they're the world leaders in it, and they knew that if they could just get into our press, if they could just get a few people to carry this water, it would work.
And we made it easy for him.
Oh, yeah, and we still are. I mean, our president is doing it right now.
We put the guy who was the essential victim of the disinformation in as Secretary of State.
Now, remember,
Slap in
that
the
guy,
face to the military.
that guy is saying, during the election, was the guy coming out and saying, imagine, the 1980s calling for their policies back and making fun. Can you imagine what Vladimir Putin and his guys were saying when they're like, listen to this guy? In 2008, this was just verified by Hank Paulson. The Blaze had it with For the Record 8 months ago, mocked for it. Now Hank Paulson verified with the BBC yesterday that Russia tried to collapse our economy in 2008, tried to ban with the Chinese to collapse the U.S. dollar. Now, can you imagine that's going on during the election? Mitt Romney says our biggest number one geopolitical foe has to be Russia. And John Kerry, this guy with the Foon stocks, comes out and says, the 80s are calling, they want their policies back. Can you imagine the laughs, the hard, hold your gut, stop, I can't, my stomach hurts, please, Vladimir, don't tell me these things anymore, I'm laughing too hard, it hurts to laugh. That's how hard they laughed.
Yeah.
And now we're negotiating with them like we scare them.
We should point out, too, Glenn, you pointed out For the Record, which is where that information came from. The new one that comes tomorrow night is on the Russia situation in Ukraine, which is big. And then after that is Blaze is airing the Soviet story, which is a documentary you have originally brought to my attention several years ago. And it's about the true history of what the Soviets did last time they went into the Ukraine. You want to talk about brutality? Some of the most.
I don't remember that documentary.
Oh, you would if you when you see. It's actually the origination. The first place.
I just saw the logo of it.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
The first place we saw the footage of what's the poet who was saying you need to justify your existence.
Not poet.
George Bernard Shaw.
Yeah, George Bernard Shaw. Him saying that that's the first place we saw that.
You have to watch tomorrow night.
It's tough to watch at times, but
get your children to watch this, please. Not your little kids.
Yeah.
Your teenage kids. Get them to watch this. It is so important that you teach them what collectivism does, what communism really is. Do not assume that they know. They are being taught the exact opposite. So please, in fact, remind me. In your show today, Buck is coming up on Blaze Radio immediately following this show. In all of our shows, and tomorrow, remind me. And please, I'm asking you as a listener, tell everyone you know, get your teenage kids to watch this tomorrow. First, at 8 o'clock is For the Record, what's really going on in the Ukraine, followed by the Soviet story, which is this incredible documentary. That shows the last time. And you'll understand why the Ukrainian people are like, no, dear God, please don't abandon us.